A century ago, America had a perfect transit system. Then, in just a few decades, it was gone. Thousands of miles of clean electric rails simply vanished. But how? And more importantly, why? The story isn't one of simple progress. It begins with a vision of a future we never got to see. These weren't just trains. They were the arteries of a connected America, pulsing with clean electric life. From bustling city centers to quiet country towns, nearly everyone was connected by this intricate, silent web. The air was cleaner. The streets were quieter. The cities were built for people, not for machines. But powerful forces saw this future as a threat. A shadow began to fall across the rails. And within this manuscript lies the secret of how an empire of rails was systematically dismantled, piece by piece. Our story truly begins in the 1920s. A time of incredible optimism and technological marvels for the public. These vehicles were called trolleys or streetcars. They were the pride of every city they served. Ridership was immense. In 1923 alone, over 15 billion passengers rode the electric rails in America. They were incredibly efficient, powered by electricity from overhead lines. A quiet, elegant solution to urban travel. This system wasn't just for cities. The Interurbans connected towns, creating a regional web of transit. A farmer could take his goods to market in the city. A student could commute to a regional college. It was a system that fostered community. People from all walks of life shared the same ride. But another invention was gaining popularity. A symbol of personal freedom. The private automobile. At first, they shared the roads. But the two technologies were destined for a conflict of ideals. The future of the American landscape hung in the balance. Public space versus private machine. For this empire of rails to fall, it wouldn't happen by accident. It would have to be pushed. And the first clue is hidden right here, in the financial records of a new kind of company. By the 1930s, many streetcar companies were struggling. The Great Depression had taken a heavy toll. They were vulnerable. And a holding company named National City Lines saw an opportunity in their weakness. But who was funding them? The money came from companies with a vested interest in the automobile. Their plan was simple, yet devastatingly effective. Buy a transit system, then dismantle it completely. First, they would acquire the majority stock in a city's streetcar line, often quietly through intermediaries. Then came the second step. Replace the clean electric streetcars with loud, polluting diesel buses. These buses were often promoted as modern. In reality, they were less efficient and far less comfortable. The final, irreversible act was the most brutal. They ripped the steel tracks right out of the streets. With the tracks gone, the city was permanently locked into a future dependent on buses, rubber tires, and oil. This pattern repeated itself in dozens of cities. From Los Angeles to Baltimore, the empire of rails crumbled. Now the investigation deepens. How did they get away with it? The public loved the streetcars. Many citizens fought back. They held protests and wrote letters, trying to save their beloved transit systems. But the consortium had immense financial power. They launched massive marketing campaigns against the trolleys. They called them traffic blockers and dangerous. They created a narrative that public transit was obsolete. The case of the Pacific Electric Railway in Los Angeles is perhaps the most tragic. It was the largest in the world. It connected 60 different communities. You could ride from the mountains to the beaches on a single clean system. National City Lines acquired it in the 1950s. Within a decade, the entire 1,000-mile system was gone. This wasn't just a business decision. This was the deliberate reshaping of American society for profit. Historian Bradford Snell was among the first to uncover the full extent of this. His research was groundbreaking. He presented his findings to the US Senate. He called it a criminal conspiracy against the public.
The government did eventually take notice. In 1947, a federal grand jury indicted the companies. They were charged with conspiring to monopolize the sale of buses and supplies to transit companies they owned.
It seemed like justice might finally be served. The evidence laid out in this manuscript was damning,
But the powerful consortium had the best lawyers money could buy.
they argued it was just good business.
The court case was complex.
The charge of monopolization was difficult to prove against such giants. In the end, the verdict was a shocking disappointment. The corporations were acquitted on the main charge. They were found guilty on a lesser charge, conspiring to monopolize the sale of buses. It was a hollow victory.
And the punishment?
A fine. General Motors was fined just $5,000 for their role.
The executive who ran the program was fined a single dollar.
$1 for dismantling an empire.
With this legal slap on the wrist, the destruction continued.
The final streetcars ran their last routes. An entire generation grew up without ever knowing this elegant form of travel. A cultural memory erased.
The old car barns were torn down.
The beautiful vehicles were sold for scrap or simply burned. Look at this photograph, preserved in the manuscript. It shows streetcars being stacked and set ablaze. The corporations had won. The age of the automobile and the freeway had truly begun. Cities were redesigned. Downtowns were hollowed out to make way for parking lots and expressways. The very fabric of urban life was altered. Suburbs sprawled, connected only by asphalt. The consequences of this loss are still with us every single day. In the air we breathe, in the traffic that chokes our cities, in the hours we lose sitting in congestion, and in the social isolation that comes from a world designed around private vehicles instead of shared spaces. The story doesn't quite end there, because history has a way of leaving ghosts behind. In many cities, if you look closely after a heavy rain, you can still see them. The old tracks.
They lie dormant beneath the pavement.
A silent reminder of a different path we could have taken. Some of the old streetcar tunnels and stations also survive, abandoned and forgotten beneath our feet. These are the ruins of the lost empire. Each one holds a story of what was and what could be.
The cost of this lost infrastructure is staggering.
To rebuild it today would cost hundreds of billions.
We are still paying the price for a decision made decades ago by a handful of executives.
Their short-term profit motive has shaped the world we all inhabit. A world of traffic and pollution. This manuscript doesn't just record history. It asks us a question about our own future. Are we making the same mistakes today? Are we choosing convenience over community and sustainability? The story of the lost rails is a cautionary tale, written on the very streets beneath our feet. And so, the manuscript reveals its final truth. The empire wasn't lost. It was deliberately destroyed. It was a casualty of a battle for the soul of American transportation. A battle the public lost. But now, something remarkable is happening. Cities are starting to remember what they lost. All across the country, new light rail lines are being built. The streetcar is slowly returning.
It's a slow and expensive process.
An attempt to rebuild what should have never been thrown away. This story, hidden in the parchment, reminds us that the future is not inevitable. It is chosen. We can choose a future with cleaner cities, with stronger communities, and with transportation that serves us all. The lost empire of rails teaches us a powerful lesson. We must be the guardians of our public good. Every stone and every rusted track carries a story we must never forget. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, subscribe and share to help us uncover more lost histories together.